waiting room. I've had a lot of people tell me that my notifications aren't going out. Is that true? I'm just gonna sit here and jaw jack until I get somebody on here that can confirm with me that we are actually live before I go over this motion. I guess we're gonna edit this out later once we finish, because I don't have anybody on my live stream right now. I am talking to myself. I'm absolutely talking to myself. I wonder what's going on. Do we got anybody out there in internet land? Nobody's watching. Nobody's watching. Wow, this is almost embarrassing. So I guess I'm just gonna run right into it and hope that all my audio and everything's going. Maybe this will we'll just do a brief on this and reshoot it live. I had a whole bunch of fans. I've been posting stuff up. I'm shadow banned online, and if y'all aren't familiar with that, it's where you can't see yourself. Well, you can see yourself post, and it looks like it's up, but nobody else can. So I looked in the servers. They have my email, Lincoln Square Leonidas, listed as spam. Not only that, but people get unsub from my channel randomly and drop off. Nobody gets my notifications. They stop. Nobody's been getting my notifications from my community page, which is where I posted up this motion that we're about to go through. And it's super duper damning. So I guess I'll just get right into it and hope that somehow this finds you. So this is just a pretrial update. I'm going over with y'all what we're going to go over in my pretrial hearing. It's coming up on January 5th. And I like to call this motion, it's a motion to dismiss. I like to call it the triple Lindy of pretrial motions, because it pulls off some impossible crap. And, they're just going to try to hide it. But what it is, if y'all know, my charges stem from following a real estate scandal case where the county bar, the whole Adams County court system, they conspired to facilitate real estate fraud, false house transfer for acquisition for the president of the county bar. So that's why they arrested me. That's why they've been suppressing me. That's why they've changed all court policy, So the attorney general already motioned to have this all not be able to show the jury, have it all suppressed from the record. And what I did was I tied it all in all together, everything that's going on, so that if there's an honest judge, he'll allow me to bring that onto the record. And that's what I do. I tie everything into First Amendment protections, and that's what this state's doing. They're trying to stop my coverage of this real estate racket. They're using force or threat of force, which is terrorism, to suppress this racket, my coverage of this racket, and to include apparently why I don't have anybody on my live stream right now. I almost halfway want to end this and start over again. But anyway, we're here. We're doing it. This is the time to do it. So what I did with this motion to dismiss was attempt to show the jury this racket that I've been covering, and that explains the state's First Amendment right suppression on me and these retaliatory charges, which are bogus and completely wiped out. They're fluffed up and whatnot. And then I follow that real estate racket on up through the Attorney General's office, who's prosecuting this case right now, all the way up into the federal courts. So I'll get right into it. And right off, I start my motion. I have it linked down below, right up at the top. So if y'all want to follow along or just take my word for it, this will just be a brief. We'll try to keep it as brief, just to let you guys know what's going on before my trial. So in the triple Lindy of pretrial motions, I pretty much start right off the bat showing that I was arrested trying to follow this court case where the Court of Common Pleas facilitates this real estate fraud. So I show the real estate fraud. This is my reason for dragging this on the record and having it there legally. And basically what it is one of the guys in our network, he's a very honorable guy, very good, was a good father and whatnot. He raised a family here. He got involved with a divorce with the president of county bar's daughter, and they kind of burn him on, distribution of assets and whatnot. But one of the big things they did was the president of the county bar, she was representing another party in a case, and they were trying to divide assets and to get the asset from these people over to her daughter. She the whole court conspired to do it. She didn't release to these people over here, or at least one of the parties, that she was the purchaser, because they said on the record that she's not allowed. I have the reproduced record. That's all submitted down as motions. So if you guys are following around, you can read the motion and then open up another window and follow along with the exhibits just to see what I'm talking about, you know. So anyway, so the whole courthouse had to do that to facilitate it. And what they did was they floated like 3 deeds in 3 days. And it was 2 on the same day, and then they waited 2 days and then floated another one. What they did was they transferred that house with kind of a wonky transfer to the president of the county bar's daughter. But on this second deed, it's notarized, witnessed, signed, and authored and granted by one individual, and that's Alan Kim Petrono, and he's president of the local regional, the biggest regional people for real estate titling and management and whatnot, and president, you know, and in the county bar, and he did that so that they could take a loan out on that house, with that loan. On that deed that they hid, and they hid from the record, and then pull half the value, take a loan out on the house, so that they could 2 days later float it over to the actual purchasing parties, which is the president of the county bar and her daughter. They're buying this as a team, but they hid that in between, not only to draw a loan out from the banks, but also to hide from this client over here that she's actively representing, that she's getting their house from. I mean, there's even more tied into it. There's even more tied into it, and it's through officially done by the courts. It's all complicit, and it's all laid out. So that was the real estate racket that I was covering in a nutshell, and that motion down there details it all out. To include reproduction of the record, whatever, what have you. It's all detailed exactly right there. So what else are we going? Okay. So then my motion goes on to show how I'm trying to cover this racket, because this guy's in our group. You know, I'm trying to bring exposure to this. And it shows how President Judge George changes COVID policy like that day that I request to attend, because COVID policy was to make sure there was social distancing enabled in the courtroom. Otherwise, they'd have to bump you out to telecast. Well, they said, the court administrator said he was going to telecast me in. I'm like, no, that's only if there's no room. And there's been nobody at these hearings, because I'm just the one random guy that's following this. So that judge that day, quote unquote, changed policy, rewrote 8 pages of COVID policy, and like order business number 1 right at the top is it like, this guy's not allowed to go. I mean, that is literally the first order of business. So it's pretty evident what he did right there, but what's not evident is that he didn't sign it or stamp it that day into the record, because it took him a couple days to write that and conspire with that judge that was overseeing the transfer of that property in that case to write an order letter later to schedule it until after this new COVID order. It's bizarre. It's detailed down there below. That's what I get into, addressing how they changed COVID policy, blah, blah, blah. And then it gets to the day of my courthouse. And I have linked the videos, there's CCTV, it's all down in there. It's all linked below in that order. As I talk about it, you can pull it up and look at it. So then I get into my charges. I'm just going to briefly go over them. Again, it's all linked below and it shows everything. And that's, I was trespassed in public, and they had to change their stories like 3 different times of what I was trespassed about. And no one ever said I was trespassed, like verbally said that I was trespassed. So they had to change their story. Oh, I was blocking the way. Well, I finally got the CCTV of it, and it shows like people are fine walking in and out whose court was supposed to happen. They got in and out, no interactions from me whatsoever. So there's no reason they should have trespassed me in a public building. I wasn't doing anything that I should have gotten trespassed for in a public building. You really have to be acting up to get trespassed from a public building. So there's that, and then I addressed my disorderly conduct charge, and to get disorderly conduct, you have to be disorderly conduct in public. So so like, why did they if I was trespassing in public, but then I was in public to be disorderly? So why is that? And then I address and I tie back in the reason why I'm investigating them, and that I was in the foyer, I wasn't past security. These COVID policies, they only say filming in court or filming in the respective offices. It doesn't say anything about in the foyer. Also in the foyer, it invites people to come in and drop things off security, so that's inviting the public. It's a public building, it's public access. You know, you have to submit to a temperature check before you walk through. Like, there's no guarantee of privacy at that outside foyer whatsoever. So they shouldn't have arrested me, and it's all protected by the First Amendment. It's a public building. I was talking with public officials. I was actually investigating because at the time I had that racketeering case going against them. So maybe that's what was motivating for that. So I get into that, and then like the last thing is that's worth talking about is my now lead charge, and that's the institutional vandalism charge, and that's just completely fabricated. They had the attorney general who's prosecuting the case now because they took it over. They had to fabricate evidence to show damage. Like this invoice that she's like, there's no invoice. 2 days later, here's an invoice detailing all this stuff. And it even lists like, due to damage done by Jake Bilsma, inmate, blah, 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 blah. And it even says remove on there, remove, replace, and fix and install. And the whole thing I'm being charged for is removing it. And they never took pictures of it. They never showed anything of repair. This bill of repair has been fabricated 6.5 months later. So if you look down in there on Lincoln, I show how it's the attorney general driving all of this, you know, like how bizarre, because she had to fabricate that evidence because she didn't show anything that showed damages. And that's one of the things. It's a removable cover. I got thrown in the cell. I got thrown in when I got arrested, they put me in the sheriff's holding cell, which is there in the courthouse. And when I walked in, I looked up and I saw that the cover on the ceiling for the building sprinkler system, it was hanging down. It just like wasn't level when they screwed it on, so that it was like one end and then screwed on. So it was like hanging down right here. And so I was being a smart ass and I grabbed it, and you can see it. I linked that video down in there. I see it, I grab it and I hand it right to the guy. And I say, hey man, this is in disrepair, it can hurt somebody, but it gets related into the report by someone who wasn't even there and is now my lead charge, and because it's the most thing they could prosecute me for. But that's the other thing, they didn't hold on to the evidence, you know, but it's just like a trash can lid. Imagine a trash can lid that's put on wrong, and then I'm like, hey guys, you put this trash can lid on wrong. That's the same exact thing. I talk about that in my motion, except that it's on the ceiling, it could fall down and hurt somebody, especially if they're incapacitated in, you know, shackles like I was. So anyway, it was me being a smart ass, and it bit me because now this is my lead charge. So this is my follow-on charge. Remember for getting stabbed by their crony. This is what they gave him for disorderly conduct. This is disorderly conduct, stabbing someone, chasing somebody down and stabbing it with 2 knives and stabbing him to the bone. That's disorderly conduct. So my follow-on charge is disorderly conduct. And that's the reality of the situation. In the courtrooms I'm going to be in, they let their little douchebag, who's a previous violent firearms offender, plead out to disorderly conduct for stabbing me. So anyway, that's just the goodness there. So then we get into why are they, I addressed those charges, and I pretty much feel like I beat them. I don't know, maybe it'll be up to a jury. But then I get into why the Attorney General's office is prosecuting this case. And that's where things kind of go a little screwy. And if y'all have seen, I have the warrant that they used to break into my phone posted down there, and it says that they can look for a case of trespassing now. They say they can look through all my phone calls, all my emails, all my text messages, all my third-party apps, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I mean, all these things, and this is for a charge of trespassing. and my GPS location, all these other things that that have nothing to do with trespassing. And then in that warrant, it cites it for institutional vandalism, which by then the cops had already taken my phone. So right off the bat, a third of the probable cause to do this warrant is just negated, right? Then later on, they say it was discovered that he videotaped his thing in full. They were trying to get a reason to get into my cell phone, but in their reason for getting in their cell phone, they say it's knowing that he recorded it, the incident, in its entirety and live streamed it to his YouTube channel, which, you know, they viewed and recovered. So in their reason to break into my phone, they completely defeat their reason to break into my phone, you know, their probable cause. So it's just, and you're like, what the shit? And you look and you see that Attorney General Christine Criss, who's my prosecutor, Deputy Attorney General, she approved this. I mean, this is like the most blatant, and right now she's trying to wipe it off the record. And the judge is going to allow her to do that and show the jury, you know, not be able to me to show the jury what the state's actually up to at all. They're going to engineer everything. They're going to engineer everything, completely erase. They're going to hold me in contempt of court if I tell the jury what was going on and why I was actually there. So that was the Attorney General. Well, it turns out, you know, that's just a warrant application, a probable statement of probable cause. It has to get approved by a judge. Well, they got it approved by a judge up in Dauphin County. It's Harrisburg, is the state capital. They're just a bunch of cronies, Pennsylvania cronies. And it got approved by a magistrate, James Lanker. And this dude's a super douche. He is personification of pedophile protecting Pennsylvania policemen. All right, this guy was like some city cop for forever, and then he had a failed real estate bid, and then he became a magistrate, and that's like exactly what Judge Harvey did, except he was a failed cop in Baltimore. He couldn't hack it. He had to come up there and beat Nick and Gettysburg. Anyway, that's what a lot of douchebag cops do. They go get elected to be magistrates, and they just hide all their local crony cops crap. So anyway, back to Magistrate James Lanker. He was also part of the Dauphin County, the Capitals County Drug and Alcohol Task Force. He was, you know, he go donate to the T-ball league and all that shit. But when he's not doing that, he's driving around operating a horse, riding down a sidewalk, smacking into people, recklessly endangering their lives. So I went and I looked this dude's criminal record up, and it turns out that in 2017, I think, something like that, he had an incident, and 6 weeks later they arrest him, and it's for a litany of like charges 1 through 11, and charges 7 through 11 are what he actually pleads guilty to, and that's 4 counts of reckless endangerment. So I don't know how, unless this dude was operating a horse, you know, galloping down a sidewalk. Like, how the hell do you recklessly endanger 4 people's lives at the same time? Unless you're drunk driving, you know, unless, well, okay, maybe not drunk driving, maybe excessive speed driving. But then, like, what were the follow-on pre-charges before that? He pled out to charges 7 through 11, or 8 through 11. And so, like, what were the 7 things he did worse before that? And if it was drinking and driving, if it was DUI, then he should have been charged with felony reckless endangerment, because that's the stipulation in Pennsylvania. If you do it while you're drinking, that's worse than even negligent. That's felony. Like, you plan to do that. That's what people like you and me the laws apply to. But this guy, not only did he plead out to, like, he walked away from the scene of the accident. He got cited by Pennsylvania State Police 6 months later. He was arrested and bailed right out. He had a public defender. He didn't have to pay for his lawyer. He just had a public defender work everything out with the judge. And that public defender got him 4 consecutive probations served at the same time. So it was 2 years probation for each reckless endangerment charge, and he got to serve them all at the same time, because, like, you know, he's 4 times as you know, feels bad, guilty, he's got 4 times heavier heart than any normal person. That's why he did 8 years of probation in 2 years for drinking and driving, smacking into 4 people, almost killing them. That was James Lanker, and that was him as a magistrate, but he recently just lost his bid for re-election. He's about to lose his job like any day now, because he failed to follow, he failed to file donations for his campaign. So and somebody caught him. He was just going to go through with it anyway, but somebody caught him and filed suit, and he withdrew once they filed suit. They had to go that far. So that's what a big douchebag that guy is. And you know, when you get away with that stuff, and you're that much of a connected crony, they're gonna come calling for you. You know, it's just like any gang, any made man. You know, they're gonna come calling back in that favor, and that's what they did. They got Magistrate James Lanker from Dauphin County to wipe this, to approve this warrant for them because he owed them a favor. I mean, that's just blatantly what it is. There's no way in the world this thing's legal or will fly. So that goes on to who actually wrote this warrant and statement of affidavit of probable cause, and that would be the special agent at the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office, Michael Carlson. Right? It's like, what the fuck, dude? You read this crazy thing, and he's a complete idiot. You could see like where he forgot to delete the spaces where he put my name in on a blanket warrant that he uses for everyone, which is got to be just so Pennsylvania crony, because that's the worst warrant ever. He says because criminals use their phone, therefore he can break into my phone and look at everything. And it got approved. So any warrant this guy's ever written, you know, you got to go back through there and look at that. But they're all protected by immunity. So anyway, getting more back on the track. And so you're like, well, shit, that's crazy, Special Agent Michael Carlson. Why did you write this crazy thing? You know, this is an Adams County issue. This is an Adams County real estate racket. So I look into this guy, what's his motivations, and it turns out his father-in-law is the guy, Alan Kim Patrono, the guy that wrote the fake deed for the president of the county bar's daughter so that they could do the bank fraud and pull out half the value of the house so that they could then get the real value, put that towards the next deed, you know? So and he did it. They're a Apple Leaf abstracting and titling company. They're that's what they do. They're abstractors. They hold on the properties in escrow and they make all the details go away. Blah 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 blah. It's often a very corrupt industry, but here in this small town, and they're the regional players. That's who done it, and that is Special Agent Michael Carlson's father-in-law. And what's bizarre is you look and you see where this Apple Leaf contract and abstracting is run out of, and it's 28 West Middle Street, except Kim Allen Patrono doesn't own this. Like, well, it's his business, it's his lifesake, it's his namesake. Why does he own this business? You know, why doesn't he own this building? And it's not like he lets out a sub office. Like, his family's owned it. And if you look, he divests from all of his real estate interests around at a certain time, and you're like, why did he do that? Well, it's a bankruptcy. Then you start looking at his bankruptcies and everything, and it turns out that he kicked that property down to his daughter, who is the wife of Special Agent Michael Carlson. So now Special Agent Michael Carlson has a vested financial interest in protecting this real estate racket. So he had basically, Special Agent Michael Carlson had to break into my phone to wipe it, because when they arrested me, I bailed out real quick and tracked it over to the president of the county bar's office, Barbara Entwistle. And when I did that and reported it, they couldn't give it back to me with that location data in there. And that's when the Attorney General took over prosecuting the case, because they have guys that can do that. Special Agent Evan Weiler, yeah, that's your name, man. You're going to come testify about this. Good times, huh? So what was I getting at? I finally lost my train of thought. So Special Agent Michael Carlson, he's all tied up in this real estate racket, and we're looking through this, and that's why he had to wipe the location data from my phone. It would have showed his father-in-law. It would have brought all that attention on that fake deed and my phone winding out of evidence in the county bar's office, in the president of the county bar's office, and the fake deed she did, and how the Adams County Courthouse just facilitated all of this. And so he had to wipe it and make it go away. And now the attorney general is motioning to suppress this, that they did this. And the judge is going to approve it. That's why our last judge we had to get rid of, because he just completely hid my former defense attorney that I fired. I caught him working with the attorney general, and he just wouldn't even let me talk. So this is how they get away with this stuff, and then they hide behind their immunity and hope you don't catch it later, or just it stays below. This scandal's so big right now, it has to break in the media. Like there's no state mechanism that's going to break this. Public opinion is going to have to break this, and the state's going to have to say, oh, fine, oh, we'll go arrest our guys, blah, blah, blah. Well, and it turns out because they're all in on it, like the entire state. So that's why the Attorney General's office is so interested in just this case. Like I already have them in 2 different cases for racketeering and whatnot. But you follow this bankruptcy thing, right? And it sets a pattern. And this is what racketeering is about. And this is what we all drag on the court record. So you look at the Patronos at Kim Allen Patrono, his family, and they're tied in with the Hausers, and that's a big name. It's gotten this, they had in the state. I don't know about it anymore. But they're kind of tied into Big Apple Country. Have you ever heard of, what is it, Mott's or Musselman's? Don't quote me on it. But they're tied into a big Apple money, if you believe it. But like Adams County here is like the 3rd biggest Apple producer in the nation. And this is where all manufacturing, it's Pennsylvania. Manufacturing used to be where they could make cans and ship it everywhere. So it's got a big history in apple orchards and apples. And that's where that money comes from. It's big in ag. This country's big in ag. All the nonprofits are big in ag. It's all self-serving. But what ended up happening was they started a winery. It was like a high-end winery and event center. And it's too far away from DC. Like it doesn't support what clientele. There wasn't enough people to support what they were trying to do. So it failed. But when it failed, they cycled around a whole bunch of debt back to each other as non-insiders. And you look into who approved this and you're like, wait, what are you talking about? Like, you're part of the company. How are you checked off as not an insider? They cycle back like $1.6 million worth of debt. I forget that exact number. But that box, how they do it, how whoever filled out that form for them does it, is they have it checked off that they're not an insider. And I pulled a law on what's an insider because I looked up the federal regulations on it. And boom, boom, insider, 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 insider. And then you look through the rest of the thing, and they're like cycling debt. Ooh, Apple Leaf Contracting. Yeah, who's their members, their family members, or blah, 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 blah. They have them listed in there like 3 different times, and it's all bogus. And it was filled out by Vance Young. Oh, man, of course, I didn't write his name down. It's slipping me right now. But it's attached down below. And it turns out this dude is like Mr. Bankruptcy for the Federal Middle District of Pennsylvania. This is the federal courts. Bankruptcy is feds, and it has to get approved by the feds in the federal district court of where you're at. Right here, we're in the Middle District of Pennsylvania, the Federal Middle District. And this guy is the president of the bar for the Middle District of Federal Middle District of Bankruptcy. And he was York County Bar, which is like where all this crap is coming from and where it's going to. And we're tying all these people together. The main thing is he's actually a federal trustee. And what those guys are is like they prepare federal documents for this bankruptcy stuff as like trusted masters. They're trustees of people who know this law and whatnot. There's a judge that oversees the distribution, but these trustees are positions of public trust to do this. Well, what's going on is select inside clientele people out here are hiring these guys when they got to go bankrupt. They're hiring these trustees as private attorneys to represent them for favorable terms. So that works it up into the Federal Middle District. And they're not the only ones because, for racketeering, you have to see a pattern. And it turns out, Adams County District Attorney Brian Sinnott, you disgusting faced human being, Yeah, he used the same thing. He went chapter 13 though, and it was all like high end credit card debt and some school debt. And there's like he ran off like $5,000 of debt to Brooks Brothers, which is probably for him like one suit, you know, like it wasn't just like an expensive piece of cloth. Like they had to like reinvent, you know, the wheel to like get all the logistics involved to get a suit for that fat motherfucker. So he went bankrupt and he had no assets, and that's because he distributed them all before it happened. And again, he's represented by a guy who's one of these federal trustees, and it's for favorable actions and like so that they don't look hard into what they're doing. So that's the racket. So it's kind of started off as a local real estate racket that they were just kind of kicking houses at each other and robbing us blind off of, and everyone was not caring about it. But then it turns out it runs straight up through the attorney general's office and into the federal courts via false bankruptcy. So that's why. That's why all this heat's coming down on me, and that's why one of the follow-on charges for me for standing in a public building is disorderly conduct, which is what, you know, an Adams County crony, Glenn Kessler, the dude that stabbed me, got for stabbing me after I disarmed him of his pistols and ran away, and he chased me down with 2 knives and stabbed me. That's disorderly conduct. So I'm yakking off pretty good right here. I think I've covered most of that. Okay, so that was my motion, and I tie everything together. It's a lot. It's very well. Of course, I'm going to say it's well written. I think it's entertaining because I knew I'd have to get people to read it and be interested in it. So I wrote it gonzo, and that's you know, it's pretty funny. I would like to say it's funny and insulting, but it's true. And it links a whole bunch of scandals down below. It's so scandalous, I still don't have anybody watching. I don't know how they're hiding this video from anybody watching it right now, but it's phenomenal. I'm just going to power through this and hope that y'all see it when it posts. If not, this was just a nice dry run. So that was my motion, and it I think it made the record Monday on the 20th, December 20th. And along with that, to motivate everyone, I served a motion to disqualify the prosecutor so that I can have her come in and testify. I want her to testify about fabricating that invoice and circumstances surrounding that, like the invoice that they're charging because they had to show damages for institutional vandalism, and I didn't damage anything, and they couldn't. Because these are just hindsight after charges to just having to wipe my phone. So they didn't secure anything, and she had to fabricate that invoice to show damages. So it's just completely fabricated, and I get into it down below. But so I'm gonna have her testify about that and a few other things. I won't get too much on here, but that's great because now that she's no longer the prosecutor, it strips her of her prosecutorial immunity. I'm going to put her on the stand and ask her all this messed up stuff. So I served those 2 orders concurrently, right? And just the bizarrity of this all is that I'm serving this crazy real estate racket to the attorney general. Like, here you go. Here's a bow. Here it is. Here, blah, blah. And they're ignoring it. they're ignoring it. So I have a bunch of plans. You know, it isn't never without a plan. But I was halfway hoping that the attorney general would just be like, "Ah, dang, man, you got us. You know, I'll let go." But it went another week, and she didn't withdraw the charges. She didn't drop the charges. We were going to go to this pretrial hearing scheduled for January 5th. I'm like, man, you know, that doesn't read good because she's still confident enough to go to court and testify on this. Like, obviously, she's still confident enough. Obviously, she's got an angle for it. So I didn't want to do it until I had to, but I motioned to disqualify Judge Maidenspocker. He's the judge that got assigned now, and I wanted to get a feel for the guy before I just totally tarnish his name in public. But he's a piece of shit. And that's how I've read him. Like 98% sure. Enough that I can call you a piece of shit on my channel if you're watching. So it's just his actions along the way have not been what an honest judge would do. He sat on this for a week and didn't make any ruling. Like, any legit judge is going to see exactly what's going on and throw it out. But this guy's not a legit judge. He's a retired judge. That means he doesn't have to get elected anymore. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court Chief Justice Max Baer assigned this guy, right? Chief Justice Max Baer. This is the guy that was just on TV explaining how it's in the public's best interest to spring serial rapist Bill Cosby from jail due to prosecutorial misconduct. And he's assigning a judge to my case. He knows all about my case and everything that the state's doing to suppress this shit and this real estate racket. And he assigns a judge. He gets told about my case and he assigns a judge to it. He doesn't put a stop to it. So that's just comical right there. But to get more into that, to disqualifying Judge Joseph C. Maidenspocker, Pennsylvania allows non-elected judges to be on the bench. Usually it's like they're retired judges, so they're appointed. So they don't have to run for a re-election. They usually appoint these guys for over caseload. They keep them in reserve. They're not like active judges, and that's why this guy got assigned. But it also means that he doesn't have to get elected, so that no, I'm just getting people telling me that they're not coming through. So it doesn't have to get elected. They don't have to get elected. They can make any bonkers ruling that's against public opinion that they'll get hated for, and they'll just leave because they have judicial immunity, and they're at the end of their careers. They're just covering their buddies' butts anyway. And Judge Maidenspocker, right on his thing, he was a lodge member. And like, there's a lot, I'm not hating on any group of anybody, but there's a lot of lodge members that are tied up into the courts up here that get favorable things passed all the time. So I already didn't like him for that. But I'm not trying to judge people, so I was gonna let him have, feel the guy out. But he sat with this last motion, all this crazy stuff on the week, and he's still gonna hear this case. And the Attorney General's confident that it's gonna go. That she's still gonna take it to hearing. So obviously, they're confident they're gonna be able to hide this. So that was my conclusive decision to disqualify this guy. Now, the reason why I disqualified him is pretty great too. I'm disqualifying him twofold. One, under bias, Rule 2.11, even the perception of bias. And that's, this guy made a ruling in my case before he was assigned to it. That means he made a ruling before he had jurisdiction. That means not only is that ruling invalid, but that means that he's not protected by judicial immunity, by total immunity, because he made that ruling while not having jurisdiction of the case. So this makes this guy liable. He's actually going to be liable for his actions and trying to hide this. So what's that doing is that's stripping him of his immunity and putting him on the bench, or excuse me, putting him on the witness stand, so that I can ask him these questions like, hey man, why'd you make this ruling before you were assigned the case? Were you influenced on it? Blah, 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 blah. And I get into it, and I'll post it down below. Yeah, so we just motioned to disqualify the judge too, and it should go, because not only is that, evidence of bias, like why were you making a ruling before you had jurisdiction, and why did it mirror exactly what the president judge who recused himself say to do at the same time? But now I want you to testify on it. Like, well, how did this come about? And you can't have a judge testify at hearings. It's against policy. I cite it. So anyway, so now we might not have a judge. I have this pretrial motions hearing scheduled for January 5th, and I have a motion to disqualify the judge on which he can't testify on the record as a judge, and I have this on the record beforehand. So it's like tripping him. And I got some more stuff to trip him on, some funny tidbits. I already let it go. I had my pops drop off this motion to dismiss, you know, with all this salacious crap in it, showing the real estate racket. And he's, I'm not gonna say he's senile. He might have forgot that he might have forgotten he had his pocket knives on him, and tried to access the court, and they let him. Not only that, but I've had issues in the past with the clerk of courts, like misfiling, not filing, holding on to things to file them later. So I'm having the CCTV. I'm trying to get the CCTV of that and see that this actually went straight on the record like it's supposed to, as per the rules of procedure. Clerk of court's got to put that on the record. So if that motion, they started reading that motion and they're like, yeah, they got to call the president judge, da 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 da. You got to come see this, or run it up to the district attorney, fat fuck Brian Sinnott, disgusting human being. Should just go. Just go to jail, man. Now they're trying to suppress this. This is what I'm trying to get a hold of, just to show how much corruption there is with the courts, and they're all protecting themselves, and they're all hiding behind immunity. And that's kind of how I sign off on the motion. It's just, these are just politicians, except they're politicians with immunity and the capability to charge and not charge their friends. And then when they get caught, they're immune, or, so somehow they figured out a way to spring serial rapist Bill Cosby from jail for prosecutorial overreach. But I'm still sitting here looking at 4 years. One of the last things I wanted to get on, talking about Judge Maidenspocker. Okay, case in point, when you have a retired judge, that doesn't have to be accountable for their rulings, right? The state kind of uses this to their advantage. They'll have them go to protect one of their cronies. They'll go make an unpopular ruling. And this Judge Maidenspocker, who's presiding over my case right now, he the last time he was activated, because he was been retired for a couple of years, last time he was activated was to make a ruling on one of our child molesting state senators that got caught. And that guy, Senator Michael Fulmer, he's in one of my investigation videos, the police scandal, missing child rape kit pictures for HUD fraud. That dude is in that video. He's got his phone in his pocket receiving the Marcy's Award for victims, defender of victims' rights. And while he's got kitty porn in his pocket getting the award. While that guy, he got caught with kitty porn on his phone. I'm sure a whole bunch of other stuff. It only came to light. But yeah, Judge Maidenspocker, the guy that's looking over me, who's presiding over my case, he ruled on Senator Michael Fulmer, the pedophiles case, and got the guy just under 2 years, so he didn't have to go to the state pen. So that's what I mean by, I just didn't like the taste that this guy's history was leaving in my mouth. And not only that, but I think his public image is that he's a veteran and he's a VFW member and all this other blah, 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 blah. But he was actually also a prosecutor back in and not too long ago, too. I think it was the late 90s. And there was a federal case against him. So what happened was, there was a minister, a straight up minister, good dude, and he was preaching or helping his community with at-risk people. And one of his gals was having a drug problem, and he went over there. He went over to the house. The house was under surveillance by the cops because it's, I don't know, crack house, whatever happened. Or no one drug person's house, whatever. So they see this preacher walk in there. They think he's delivering drugs. They bust the door down, blah, 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 blah. And they find plastic bags with whatever it was in them. And here's this guy. He's a preacher. He was going over there because this gal was having a hard time. And he went over there to help her. And they bust the guy and they beat the crap out of him, beat the snot out of him. And when they do that, if you plead guilty to the most minimum of charges, then it exonerates them for doing all that. So that's what they were holding this guy in jail for 6 months. Judge Maidenspocker was the prosecutor at the time, backing up the cops, holding this guy in jail for 6 months, trying to get him to plead out. So that's that guy's actual image. Just like Magistrate Lanker, the guy who approved that search warrant, who's a big piece of shit. He was on the Dauphin County Alcohol Advisory Board. he's the one that smacked into everybody in his car and got away with it. That's again, these are the actions that are brought to you by politicians that have immunity. So whether it's got to go or not, I don't know. That's a whole different conversation. I'm getting long-winded here. But the last two things I wanted to touch on, and that's I have to send a thank you to all y'all that all my fans. Still, no one's up on the live stream. I know I have people texting me like, "Oh, dude, what happened?" Blah 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 blah. I'm just gonna hope that this closed out and is gonna go out to y'all once I end the live stream. But I have to thank Carrie, and that's my buddy who played Carol Baskins here behind the bar at our trial, our pre-trial, and who we were following in the courts when they an administrative error. They gave her a contempt of court and fines for their administrative error. This is how important it is to network. If you're wanting to expose local corruption, if you're wanting to do this, you have to work with other people. You have to find other people that have been screwed by the system. And you might not always find them on Facebook. They might be bummed out of Facebook like me. Like no one's heard of me on Facebook locally because A, Facebook kicks me off, and B, anytime anybody puts any of my stuff up, it gets taken down by the local page masters or whatever they want to call them. So anyway, you have to network. And networking with Carrie, because Carrie's so amazing. Not only does she have her story and confirms a lot of the things that's going around with her town, she's kept documents. She's been awesome about it. She's a Spartan mom. Like she's awesome to work with. Thank you so much, Carrie. And then in addendum to that, and what I'm getting at is networking. Is Carrie is a member of Pennsylvania Bikers for Justice. So these are great guys. They're an independent force, and they do cover injustices that are overlooked by a lot of your traditionally covered areas. And they do everything from escorting moms to and from trials, to covering, helping in court watching, to supporting their community in schools, you name it. One of the big things that Pennsylvania Bikers for Justice, the way I first heard of them, was they had a campaign going about Caden's Law. That's Caden's Law. And that's, it was a tragedy. It was a law proposed by going through our Senate. Well, it went, but it was for child advocacy. And you hear, oh, yeah, there's a bill for child advocacy and parental rights and blah, blah, blah. But in actuality, it served to just wrap more kids up in the system. It was not a good bill. It's being promoted and getting you to vote for it in the name of. But they went through it and they busted it down. And it is not something that we want to be subjecting our kids to. And that's, again, one of the things that they do for the community. So Pennsylvania Bikers for Justice, thank you so much for giving me y'all's time. Apparently, some guys are going to come in, some guys and gals, excuse me, are going to come in and court watch for me. And again, that's one of the things they do. It's grassroots community. So I want to thank Pennsylvania Bikers for Justice. I'm not going to name you individuals, just your organization as whole and the local Adams County chapter. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I really appreciate it. This is the part where I take questions, but there's nobody here on the live stream. So we might be doing a repop of this here shortly, which is awful because now I'm not getting my live watches. And even if it goes, who knows if it goes, I might have just done this as a complete dry run. So to wrap things up, since I don't have answers to answers, I don't have y'all's questions to answer. I'm just going to reiterate that January 5th is my pre-trial. It's at 10 a.m. And I'm going to link down below where you can get in contact with the Adams County administration if you'd like to attend. They refused to answer me about attendance procedures. So you go ahead and ask them. I was going to put it out to you guys for them, but go ahead and individually ask them. I'll link that down below. It's January 5th at 10 a.m. You might have to call. I know if you want to attend, you have to call ahead locally or call ahead. So I'm going to get on more of this. I hope that served as a decent enough update for y'all. I'm sorry I wasn't able to converse with you guys. I see I don't have a single person watching or a thumbs up. They shadow ban me. So hopefully this thing will post. Hopefully it's just to mess with my analytics and this who wants to watch this video. And it doesn't matter. My true fans will get to see it anyway if this thing posts. So anyway, that's it for this wrap up. This was just going over my pretrial motion, the Triple Indy Pretrial Motions. It's a good read, man. I'm trying to get it published. I wrote it pretty entertaining. There's a whole bunch more entertaining stuff going on. I still have more tricks coming up. Remember, we stripped the prosecutor. We're trying to strip the prosecutor and the judge of their immunity by putting them on the stand. And we have solid reason to do it. But I guess it's up to the judge to decide who has immunity. So anyway, that's what I got for you guys. Thank you for your support. I hope this goes out to you. We might have to just go ahead and fire it right back up again. Much love. Thanks. January 5th, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time is my pretrial date, if it goes. I'll keep you all up on it. Thanks. Much love.